What's up, Rad fam, and welcome back to another episode of the Rad DAO podcast. Have you ever met somebody for the first time and felt like you've been friends forever? Did we just become best friends? Yep. Well, that's my guest today. He goes by Con among lions in the DeFi circles, but he's been in the space for a number of years now, bringing people together, funding projects, and taking things to the next level. And today we just have a blast. We talk DeFi, we talk shitcoining, we talk market structures, and we boldly make incorrect predictions about the market. So you're not going to want to miss it. But good advice, don't listen to other people's predictions about the market. But before we get into today's episode, I need to make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, that you have liked this video, and that you are leaving me only 5-star reviews on your favorite podcast app. We are on the mission to get this thing to 1,000 subs, and I know that we can do it with your help. Please take a minute and join the Telegram group for the Rad DAO podcast in the show notes below. Would love to have you there, and we invite all of our guests to join there as well. So if you had more questions for any of our guests, you should be able to find them in there. With that, fam, let's get into episode 15 of the Rad DAO podcast. Let's go. Con among lions, among pyramids, among bear markets, among friends. Welcome to the show, my brother. How you doing?
Hello, it's a pleasure to be here, and thank you so much for having me. A fellow Rad Dad, I hope, in the making.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, listen, I had enough people in my crypto circle say, how come you haven't had Con on yet? That we just had to make this happen, so appreciate you taking the time today.
I appreciate hearing that people say that. That's good to know.
You have a bit of a reputation, which is not a bad thing. Sometimes it can be, but in your case, it isn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, I do fill in quite a few shoes. I've been filling them in for about 5 years now in the crypto scene, and it's good to know that the reputation of trust has been built. And that's all you can ask for in the crypto world. I mean,
in a trustless society, it seems that trust is actually really important, or at least reputation.
Yeah, like it's amazing because you do say what you say is correct. I mean, it is supposed to be a trustless society. That's one of the core foundations and tenets of crypto. But I don't know about you, but from what I've realized, man, the cornerstone is always down to trust. I mean, if you can't trust 100%. The team that you're investing in, if you can't trust the founder of a blockchain, if you can't, it's just a storm waiting to happen, basically. So trust, unfortunately, still does play a very key role in our scene.
Yeah, but I think we got to go through that wave and flush all those people out before then we can actually just trust the process and get to where we're all trying to go, right?
I agree, and that falls in line with what I personally believe to be true. The fact that crypto is still an experiment. What we see in crypto, what we think is the end result right now, which is all these flashy gains and whatnot and this revolutionary tech, it's still the experimental phase. It's just proving that the system works. That's what we're doing right now. We're proving to the masses that this technology can, in fact, make their lives better, and not just on a personal level. We're talking on a global macro level. The crypto is tech. It's not money. That's what people don't understand. It's a shame that people just look at the money aspect without realizing that this is the equivalent of the printing press. When humans created such a new novel revolutionary concept. Oh, we can print what people say now and distribute to the masses. Crypto is probably a bigger revolution if we're looking at the longer term, if we're talking 20, 50 years in advance from now.
So you've been around for a couple cycles though, and we're 15 months I think off the top of the highs now. You still sound wildly bullish about the future of the space.
That's because I have to take a step back to get this optimistic. Let's say if we're talking on the smaller time frame, I'm the very opposite. I'm I'll be honest with you. I don't like what I see, man. It's it's like what I imagine what Bruce Wayne felt like when he walks out into the streets of Gotham and he's like, oh, I see the potential, but this place is nasty. You know what I mean? Yep. Crypto's turned into an ugly circus, not a funny circus, in my opinion. And we've just got to zoom out, man, if we want to remain positive. And that's what keeps me still in the scene. I'm trying to be active in a world that doesn't seem to reward genuineness and innovation, which is kind of strange because that's what brought us into this this world in the first place. It's that fairyland feeling of, oh, maybe what I say does matter. Maybe I can influence the scene in some way.
Hey, you're preaching to the choir here, because a large part of what I'm trying to do here is to bring authenticity, and genuine interest in projects and sort of the future of the technology, because that's what I'm curious about, and that's why I like guys like you. But I do want to read one of your recent tweets here, because it's a little damning of the crypto market. So to put it simply, crypto is a massive global circle jerk of confirmation bias. If you haven't realized this yet, you've now been told. Nobody's correct. Nobody cares about you. Nobody's happy when you make gains, and nobody's sad when you get wrecked. So open your eyes. That's pretty bearish.
People think that I'm a pessimist, negative. That's not the case. In my opinion, anyone with roots who's actually in this for more than just the money, I think they will agree that there is a stoic nature to that statement. It's kind of like, cut out all the bullshit, all the filtering. Don't fall for the soy boys and the Instagram models telling you that, we're happy when you make your gains. It's all just a show. And if you fall in for the show, then you're the sucker in that scenario. I mean, you are the mark. And I just want people to get illuminated to the point where I'm not trying to depress you. I just want you to realize that the show will end. All shows have a beginning and an end. And when the show ends, and if you're not on the right side of the theater or the stage, then you're going to come out worse. I mean, hopefully every one of us wants to come out of crypto having bettered their life in some way or form, whether it's through making contacts and networking, or it's making life-changing amounts of money, to being able to pay your bills, to being a part of a revolutionary technology, sorry. You want to come out of it with some sort of a negative gain, net gain. If the market, turns to shit like what we're seeing now, and you're left with nothing on the table, then you start asking the tough questions, which is, what did I do with the last 2 years of my life? I was so confident. I kept boasting to everyone, but I have nothing to show for it. And because I've been through that myself, I kind of want people to know about it so they don't fall into that, that classic story cycle of, you've got nothing, you've got it all, you're back to nothing.
Hey, but there's two sort of forks in the road there when you do that round trip back to zero, or back to where you started, or whatever. And it sort of, I think, determines your ultimate success in the space. So you can either get shaken out and walk away and said, this was a terrible experience, I got fucked and I'm out. And that's okay. Like, for some people, that they used what they had and they couldn't afford to put any more, and that's fine, do your thing. But then there's other people that can sort of dig in. They're stubborn about it. Like, no, I did fuck up, but I'm not going to fuck up next time. And I'm going to just, tweak a few things and really come out this successful. That's kind of where I'm at. I didn't blow the bull run, but I certainly didn't get rich off of it. But I learned a lot. And now I'm trying to, through this, educate myself even further on how I can play it better next time. But you're right. We've talked about this on the show before. The WAGMI thing is BS. It's a zero-sum game. We're all trading against each other. You're my X liquidity, I'm your X liquidity. It's just the way the game works. But you have to know that going in, and a lot of people don't.
Exactly.
They just think things will go on forever, not recognizing that somebody buying SafeMoon at 2 billion cap is just handing their money to somebody else. It's never going to see it again,
Yeah, or the fact that everyone that comes out saying that, bull run's back on, they say this because they know that with every ounce of your being, that is what you're praying for every night. So the moment someone suggests it, that's the confirmation bias I'm talking about.
Certainly.
All these people on Twitter that are either bullish or bearish, it's really hard to determine whether that's a single, every personal opinion of each and every one of them, or if it's just that confirmation where it's I need more faith, so let me say it, and if someone says it back to me, then it confirms what I hope is true. And honestly, they say ignorance is bliss, and it's a very good way of looking at life, because if you think that confirmation bias is making the market bullish, then all the power to you. It puts you in a good mood, but you can't act entitled when that mood doesn't come out as you expect, and everything's the opposite of what you hoped. And then you start pointing fingers and being like, oh, it's the regulator's fault. Oh, it's the tax man's fault. Oh, it's the shitcoiners. Bro, you're encouraging the shitcoiners. Every time you buy a dog clone, you are telling 100 more low level coders, I wouldn't even call them devs, to copy paste that code, give it a new dog name, and then you're giving them the ammunition. That's the only reason they can survive and thrive. And honestly, the last year or two, the people who have survived the most and thrived the most are these opportunists. I don't think we should reward them. I mean, fair game. It's by the blockchain. Everyone goes by the code. I mean, you get yourself involved into, something that you should be knowing more, encompassed in knowledge about. But let's be honest. We all know that 99.9% of people will not do even a 10 minutes worth. I think 10 minutes is a lot of credit of reading.
Yeah.
And if you're taking advantage of that to a certain point, it's just you are the parasite. And I don't like parasites, man. I think we should be altruists. Crypto does give us that opportunity, and there's abundance.
Well, it's interesting because as soon as a project realizes some success, let's call it a shitcoin project, then they have to start thinking, oh, fuck, what's the actual roadmap here beyond just mooning the chart, right? And then the immediate thing that most turn to is doing some sort of good in the world, be it like building wells or solar panels, or trying to be the next national currency of Zimbabwe or whatever the fuck their plans are. But like, most of those start as scams, and then they end up trying to do something good, or they have to figure it out. So I don't know. I'm with you. I don't like that. I don't like giving my money to shitcoiners because I don't trust 99.99% of them, and I think it gives the space a bad name more than anything, because that's all you hear about in the news is the rugs and the scams and the hacks, and I'll use hacks loosely, and like some of the stories coming out of these projects, and for the reason that they're keeping your money forever, fucking hilarious. But like, it's all just bullshit.
Just in retrospect, in terms of like what the media and what the mainstream will focus on, how many stories have we heard that are similar to the Shiba whale, the guy who like bought like a couple of thousand worth of Shiba, and then that turned into like billions worth of asset? You hear that like once every like blue moon. But how many times do you hear about, oh, today this was drained, oh, this was exploited, oh, this guy managed to rug this product, and then they start tallying them, and that's when the statistics don't lie. I mean, for every one Shiba whale that had generational wealth made, you've got thousands of people that have lost, if not their life savings, then a significant sum of what they need to survive. Most people aren't playing with money that is extra. Most people are like gambling with what they're surviving on, which is when it starts to get into a dangerous territory. And that's why I think the sort of degeneracy side of crypto, which I'm against personally, is celebrated. They want you to feel good about doing what I just described, which is gambling with whether it's just you or your family's means of survival, whether it's a salary, your savings, your credit card. I mean, man, people are buying crypto on credit. Can you imagine? Like, you're breaking rule number one, bro.
100%. And I've seen people on Telegram like say, I threw my rent check in this, and then it moons and it turns out it was a honeypot and it's just fucking gone, right? And like that's got real world consequences to your idiocy, basically.
Unfortunately, most people, to them, that's just a bubble on a Telegram screen that's showing thousands of messages per hour. So it's like, oh man, vibes, positive vibrations your way, bro. And that's it. They're out the picture. And then you're focusing on the next Shiba Inu, Elon, Hard, Mars, Inu clone.
So how do we get out of this? Because right now we're very much in the middle of an AI trend. Everything is AI. This is like .com all over again. None of these projects are going to last. Maybe the graph will, but like none of these shitcoin projects are. So like it just seems like every 2 weeks we're switching teams, and there's the next wave of contracts coming out with some stupid name. Like, how do we end this garbage?
Well, I think it's a very tough battle, if we're being honest, because on the one side, you've got the people who are just recycling this garbage, and they can produce that. We're talking thousands of coins a day if they wanted to. We're talking about a global force of copy pasters that now have AI to, help them out whenever they get stuck. So you've got that on the one side, and their ages range from probably 7 years old up to like maybe 70. On the other side, you've got the people who are actually building for tomorrow. So real companies that are, they're putting their money where their mouth is. They're putting it on the line to develop something that they think could push humanity's understanding of existence a step forward. And obviously, these companies, these startups, they do hope for a monetary gain, but that is not guaranteed. So with the recent trend in the last 2 years where basically VCs and these startups that took advantage of people were defrauded in public, where everything turned out to be paper money. A lot of these companies or startups were raising millions and then building games that probably cost them hundreds, if not maybe a few thousand from a third-party studio, and taken years to even release this level of garbage. And they've been exposed. So it's more of a liability if you want to build for the purpose of building. If you're a true developer, a true company startup that think you've got the next piece of the puzzle in terms of blockchain, like what is a problem that we can solve that hasn't been solved by all these other blockchains? And if you put your life, your family's life at risk to like work on this instead of like a job, and you succeed, then that's fantastic. But we can't deny that there are a huge amount of risks and liabilities in return for what could be a good reward. Whereas if you're one of these faceless anons that we just talked about before, the thousands that are copy pasting code, you've got no risk, no liability. Even if you get caught, you just change your IP address, you just change your wallet, you just funnel some ETH through, a third party centralized exchange that no one's heard of, and there you go. Your ETH is clean now, no one can track it, and you can start fresh. And you can gather a crew, a mafia. If you're good enough at it, sooner or later you'll have minions, and they'll start doing the work for you, and then they'll just copy paste it. It's a parasitic like nature. A year ago, we were like exponentially less in number of like these freelance quote unquote devs. Their numbers are insane right now.
I think part of that, though, is the fact that you could buy trusted projects like top 100 coins that were then giving you amazing gains, right? But now we're in a spot where really nothing's kind of giving you great gains. So the only plays to achieve any sort of X multiple are these shit coins, right? And I think it stems from a place of desperation more than anything. I think if you gave the people buying all these shit coins $1 million, like just gave it to them, they would never buy this shit anymore because they're done, right? Like they've got to where they were trying to go through this process, but they don't realize that it's just gambling. It's just gambling, right? You have no idea if any of these are going to be successful.
We can be realistic and say that crypto does make money for people who work hard enough at it. Like we've got so many examples of people who've started with nothing that have, found and made great gains, great wealth. But making it seem to the average man that crypto is basically Aladdin's lamp. You can fucking rub that thing. You can go in with whether it's $50 or $100. You go into crypto, bro. I swear, you got a yacht waiting for you. You've got 3 Lambo. You know what I mean? Selling off that dream, it's ridiculous because the amount of luck, the amount of you can do it through luck where you're just randomly throwing random amounts of money at shitcoins and one of them hits the jackpot, or you can be prepared. And honestly, I don't know how these people put up with it, the prepared ones. They're putting hundreds of hours every week following wallets online and like trying to decode tweets and seeing in between and like trying to come up with theory. And it's like, okay, if it pays you off in the end, is it worth being that weird like incel zombie that's just like, clicking on Etherscan links on 5 different screens at the same time?
But like, okay, so this is what frustrates me the most, though. So we've got this culture of trying to hit it big, and then we've got really quality projects out there that are trying just to survive. But because they're not returning things immediately, and I'll happily name an example. I'm invested in a game called Nexus, a Fin. I think you probably actually heard of it.
We were invested in that VC, yeah, Athen.
So they're doing great things. I really like the product that they're putting together, but the chart is sitting in the fucking basement, like below pre-sale prices right now because it's not hype, right? So then people look at that and be like, oh, this is a dead project because look at the chart. It went from like $2 to like 3 cents or something, not understanding the unlock structure. But then they get no love. So they well managed their capital. They're good to go for the bear market. But how many projects out there didn't, right? How many didn't tether when, they were still in the 50s for BTC or whatever and give themselves enough runway to survive a down market? So it's hard. And it would be extremely frustrating for a quality build team to operate in this market right now.
100% agreed. I mean, I've been in the VC, like the crypto specific VC game, the venture capital game, ever since 2019, where I co-founded a VC with a friend of mine. And just from our personal experience, as well as all the other sister VCs that we've collaborated with, networked with, communicated with over the last 5 years or so, it's such, the pattern is so clear and obvious. the projects that raise money and try to actually build, without a doubt, all of them are either like way below pre-sale price or barely hanging by a thread, or even if their price is semi-good, there's barely any liquidity in the market, and it just shows a crippled project. Whereas the ones that just made big promises, they just literally, it's like they copy-pasted all the viral hype words of crypto at that time, whether it was 2020 or 2021, and they just made a white paper that just had great pictures and glossy words. And so long as you hit the box, VCs were investing. So that was smart money. And we invested in quite a few of these projects. And the net result is they're either pitifully performing or they completely rug and despair. But here's the conclusion that most people don't come to. The seriously building projects and the ones who are obviously just taking advantage of the market, the net result is pretty much the same. No one talks about them. Like, there's no liability. There's no people asking for and demanding answers. So you can either be the docs team who's trying to be the geek that's doing everything by the book and getting slaughtered eventually when something does fuck up, because it's DeFi code. There's always going to be someone who can hack your code, and if he can't, someone else will eventually come along who can hack your code. So there's that much of liability. If you're doxed, you're registered as a company, they will go for your balls, that you will be crucified in public and your life will be basically in flames. Whereas if you look at this team who also raised a couple of mil, did no work, just pretended that they were working, released a few videos, maybe spent a couple of, 50K, 100K out of the millions they raised, and no one hears from them again and no one demands anything. And crypto lets them get away with it. So it comes back and ties in. It's like, if they're both getting treated the same way in the end, where it's like, whether you made your money or not, if you dox and you try and do it the right way, your net result is you're going to become a scapegoat, versus the temptation of just giving up halfway, running away, and no one has to know, about you ever again. And maybe you launch another coin. Who knows? Maybe that first million made you hungry, and now you become this like crypto idol, like Ryoshi or what these stupid names you hear on Twitter. It's like, it's just another dude that did copy paste at the right time. Like, there's no glorification. He's not super high IQ, but people love a story. So, the story's making the money, so they enforce it. The human mind is a crazy and powerful tool when it's a hive mind. People make up their own stories and then they manifest them into reality just through sheer numbers.
It's actually pretty wild to watch. Like, any really connected community can make themselves believe pretty much anything. It's really easy to see how a cult would form, actually. If you get, one person in place that can talk to the masses and then you get everybody bought in, I've seen it basically happen online, and it's dangerous, right? It's dangerous because at some point they all need to get out, or they've done it wrong, right? Because why else would you be invested in it? And they're all going to start, clamoring over each other to hit the sell button, and, it all turns to shit.
It's quite funny because this reminds me of a pretty good real life example in crypto. A lot of people are bullish on Hex and Pulse.
Yeah.
And to me, it's like, fair play to you. I was involved in Hex at one point. I made some money. I didn't do 5 like the rest of y'all, but, respect. You made money. I made money. Some people lost money. That's the game. But there's one question that I ask these Hexicans and these people who've sacrificed for Pulse. And, if you look at some of the Pulse sacrifice wallets, bro, there's 8-9 figs worth of people who are like, all right, I'm going to trust you with this money. And the question is, bro, Pulse does stand to make people a lot of gains. So does Hex. But what happens when Richard Hart dies? If he has a heart attack tonight, what happens to these projects that revolve 360 degrees fully and entirely on a single person? And that's, as you say, a very dangerous thing, because it works while it works, but, shit changes in an instant. He could get hit by a bus tomorrow.
100%. Or you get crushed by the weight of your shopping bags as you're leaving Gucci because you're just blowing your fucking sacrificers' money. Oh my God, I'd be furious. I'm glad I never participated.
Classic Richard Hart reference in the middle of a podcast. You got to shout out to the OGs,
Hey, Richard, you want to come talk to me? I'm all in. Emails in the show notes. You just hit me up on Twitter, whatever, bro. I'll talk to you for hours. Come on, man. But anyway, I don't know. It's tough, right? I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I got involved with that sort of shady shit. Not saying Richard Hart's shady shit. I think he's just a different character. But I'm talking back in the sort of the scam world. I wouldn't be able to live with myself. I'm just maybe that's a fault of mine. Maybe I should just let it go, turn my camera off, change my name to Rad Chad, and start fucking everybody over. But I don't think I'm not going to do that, right? So I don't know. I think we are the ones that are going to come out the other side in 5 years, like laughing, because
Well,
I think that
that's
that's where this is headed.
we can tie that back into some of the previous metaphorical talk we were talking. I mean, we are part of the battle, so to speak. Yourself, myself, people who forego the easiness of taking advantage of other people to make vast amounts of money quickly, which is very possible for any intelligent human being. I mean, I'm spilling the beans here. You don't need to be high IQ. You can do this if you're above average intelligence. You can make millions by taking advantage of people in crypto, guaranteed. But there is a select few who decide that they will forego this opportunity and in exchange work on building a reputation. And as we say, it goes back to trust. So maybe I don't know Rad Dad before on the internet, but one day we're in the same Telegram group of the same shitcoin. I get rugged, and Rad Dad turns into Rad Chad, and he like reimburses me what I've lost because he feels bad for me. And it's like, oh wow, that was a real human connection that was made in a very like material, like non-social environment, which is it's a beautiful spark. It's like friendships made in the most difficult situations. You know, they're the ones that tend to prove their worth over time. So, like, look at me and you talking right now. I mean, we were just Telegram usernames to each other about a year or 2 years ago, but the circles we were involved in kept on like mutating to the point where eventually it was like me and you in a small room, and it's like we actually got to talking, and we're like, you know what, you think like me, I think like you, I think we have a lot to say to one another, and then we give each other that like passion to like, no, we're doing God's work, you know what I mean? This is good, man. Like being involved in DeFi and not fucking people over and just trying to ask the right questions to the right people to push the boundaries for everyone. Like as I said, there's abundance for everyone.
Well, I'm of the slowest smooth and smoothest fast approach, and I appreciate the kind words because I'm just taking it easy, man. I think people need to learn more patience when it comes to their investments and also just their progress. Like we've sort of nurtured this culture of I'm going to get rich overnight, or at least the media has, because they show Bobby on his Lamborghini in New Jersey wearing a wife beater talking to Fox News about it, and that's becomes the poster of get into crypto now, when realistically there's so much cool stuff. I mean, I was talking to Pavel Sinelnikov last week of the Chorus Stack, who's like trying to incubate a project that will basically connect graphic designers, developers, and any sort of people like that are freelancers in Web3 with DAOs that are looking to hire them. And everyone's got reputation scores, like much like an Uber or Fiverr, for example. Like there's cool shit happening in this space right now, but nobody's hearing about it because it's just so negative.
Speaking of cool shit, man, ZK Snarks, man, they're fucking like they've done them, they've made them. They were talking about that shit when when I got into crypto. It's like you don't well, a lot of people don't realize the revolution we are living in terms of like this blockchain technology. It's like we are solving like some insane, and if you tie that into AI, I mean, imagine when AI is also powering that, like instead of mining crypto, it's like coding crypto, and it's like, whoa, bro, if we come to that level, we're probably looking at like making life easier for like the entirety of the human civilization within the next few decades, easily. And blockchain is going to be the catalyst, one of the catalysts, perhaps. But yeah, there is some genuine, amazing technology being released left, right, and center around us every day. But yeah, it's gotten to the point where it's hard to filter out. I'm gonna be honest with you. Like I used to be with the times. Now I'm like trying to catch up. There's just so much information related to crypto being released on a daily basis. Whether you're just watching the news sites or the Telegram groups or the Discords or the Twitters, there's so many categories. And you try and stay relevant, and that takes up so much time that you yourself can't, do your own building, so to speak, like your personal touch in the scene. So yeah, it is exhausting, if I'm being honest.
I hear it, man. Like I'm trying to put out good content here, and I'm trying to like up the production quality, figure all this shit out because this is all I'm learning on the fly here. But I can already tell that the amount of time that I had set aside for sort of researching and engaging with different communities and that sort of thing is just fallen off the wayside because I got kids. I got a 9 to 5. Like I got a wife. I've got all this shit and I don't have time to do it all. So I think, going back to sort of your comments around connecting with people and community, I've got groups now of people that I trust in the space to give me ideas, give me feedback, and figure it out because I just can't do it by myself. And I don't think anybody can. But I think you got to find your tribe, so to speak, and because otherwise you're just going to get hurt. I think the solo venture in crypto is a very rare thing. The person that just didn't know anybody, came in, got rich, and left. Like, I don't think
They
that's
don't
really
last
a
usually,
story.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. I found that community does play like a massive part of like the stickiness of crypto. Like some people join crypto, stay for a year, half a year, 2 years, leave. But the ones that, feel like they've been, tribalized, like they've got their people, like whether it's on Discord or Telegram or like, Bitcoin talk, we're talking OG, crypto people, they used to be laughed at, by the public. So it used to be a very inclusive society that dreamt of being out in the public. And I think a lot of the OGs that struggled back then, they found their way to flourish. So some of them have become like influencers on Twitter. Some of them have gone on to code and like just release, new concept after a new concept. Some of them have made new blockchains entirely. But yeah, they all started off as that, that person who was too afraid to talk about crypto in public. So these societies, they had to be close knit. And if you can find yourself, one of these like groups or a couple of them, it just makes the journey just so much more enjoyable for one side and safe. On the other hand, you mentioned like safety. You can't come into crypto blind.
Yeah, I think if the danger is in landing in a community that is specific to a token, as opposed to like a general information community. Because if you get caught up in that hype wave, it's sketchy. Everyone buys in. When everyone's so convinced it's going somewhere, then it's definitely not going there. So it's just, but the news cycle, like having all this information, you check any financial site right now and you will see something about Bitcoin. You'll see something about ETH or something. And that 5 years ago, that was not a thing, right? It was only when it crashed like 80% would you see a headline about it. But now it's sort of just baked into the background of all sort of financial reporting, which is, I think, how adoption happens. If in 2-3 years, people still see information about various cryptos, I'm sure Bitcoin and ETH will be there, but you can't ignore it at that point. It's been around so long, people are still involved with it. It is still, progressing, that it's becoming an institution in and of itself.
Like McDonald's, it's in the back of your mind. You realize it's there. You don't necessarily know where the food comes from or what the fuck it does. Yeah. I just know there's Bitcoin. I mean, it's that point. Everyone knows about Bitcoin. You're not the cool kid in the class who's like, I'm going to be a millionaire when you working 9 to 5s.
Totally. But even like I saw a headline, I think it was this week, about Visa learning how to settle payments in USDC. Like this stuff is just going to happen and people aren't going to realize it. And I think from my perspective, I'm happy to be here now because I like seeing behind the scenes, but behind the scenes isn't going to matter to the general population, right? So we just need to get to the point where the only projects you hear about are the ones that are literally changing the world, not the ones that are really fucking people over.
Well, yeah, at the same time, I mean, I'm not going to say that I'm not in it for monetary gain. I mean, 100%. I do have big plans and dreams. So supporting a project, it always comes like there has to be some sort of a line where you're just like, keeping my liquidity in the liquidity pool or like investing in another round that they're hosting. I mean, if there's love there, there's love there. But at one point, you are basically just like giving away your ETH or whatever crypto it is that you're accumulating. Supporting a dead project. And it's a real shame because, when you sell your tokens, like, oh, you took out 5 ETH out of their 50 ETH pool, it's like you might feel guilty for harming it, but there's no point in giving your money away. I mean, you still have to be smart about what you're doing. So invest in projects that you do personally have faith in some way or form, but at the same time, don't live in that Peter Pan world where it's like everything's going to be good forever. Like, that money's going to be taken out someday. It may as well come out as 5 ETH in your pocket rather than 0.05 ETH a couple of months later when the project clearly can't keep up with the hundreds of other tokens that are being. It's like, it's not necessarily the project's fault. Like, people are quick to blame these, like, these well-minded, like entrepreneurial, like, oh, I want to dev and release a project, and they've got good intentions and they just don't know what they're getting into. So when their project fails and then the community starts, attacking them personally, a lot of people can't take that. And I can see both sides of the equation, but it's the nature of the game. I mean, the stronger willed ones will stay. They'll become even craftier and just go on scamming and rugging. I mean, until we get a break out of this cycle, I mean, I don't know, man. I'm personally not willing to invest in shit coins or meme coins just because of the risk factor. It's like a 99 versus 1 odd.
Hey, I'm happy if any of my buddies hit it and make a buck on it. That's fine. But I'm much in the same way. I'm just averaging into what I think are solid long-term projects and just chilling. Like I realize I'm not going to be rich overnight, and that's fine. But I think that the long-term prospects of getting into quality far outweigh the risks of getting into junk.
I have found beauty in the higher market caps personally as I've aged with crypto. Now that I look back, when you're younger, you're more wild, you want to take more risks, but after you've been in the game for a while, you're just like, a steady 50% on a large chunk of money is still pretty good gains. You know what I mean? Like, if we're talking numbers, as opposed to like throwing $500 at 10 different shit coins and hoping one of them hits. It could be fun for some people. To me, I'm just like, yeah, man, I'll wait, 2 years, no problem. I've done this before,
You know what, though?
ready
I
for
think
another.
yeah, no, it's part of the law of large numbers, though. Like when you get to that point where you've got a decent safety net, 50% on a million is 500K. If you have to wait 2 years for 500K, you just made 250,000 a year for the last 2 years. Like, that's fucking amazing, right? So, but if you're throwing $100 in, 50% is nothing, right? So people, they'll wait and they'll hold and they'll hold and they'll hold, hoping it's going to a million, and then it just doesn't.
Man, it was like, speaking of that, just in real life example, in 2020, 2021, when it was like the gold phase, like the golden era, where it's just like everything was just making multiples overnight. I spoke to one of the quite well known KOLs in the crypto community, and I was pitching him on a project, and he was having a conversation with me, and he said something that I wasn't at the level of them, but now it's like when you're playing with, as you say, large numbers, they just think on a different level. It was like, why would I invest this money in this project when I could just put my 5 mil in Nexo and I'm earning 4% a year? And I just did the math, and I was like, bro, that's a healthy wage. That's a monthly wage. And crypto was paying that. And that was Nexo, which was one of the more conservative ones. Some were paying out like 10, 15, 20%. And if you've got mills, man, you ain't going to risk that on shit coins, man. You're just going to farm what's there to be farmed on the table. 50% APY, give me that 50%. I'll eat it up while it's on the table. The people that were farming Pancake in the early days, bro, they be eating now. They've got farms and like land and like villas and shit.
Dude, it's like when I first got into crypto, obviously PancakeSwap was like the first like offbeat destination that I landed on. And so if I reflected on it about a year later, and I said, if I just put all the money I put into a generic cake farm at the beginning and just compounded it, I would have been fucking set, right? But it's boring. That's boring. No one wants to do that. Man, people.
The whale's strategy. The whale think
Yeah, I know
different
the
than
whales do.
shrimp.
This is the
Yeah,
thing, though. You got
yeah.
to switch your mentality to think like a whale.
That's why I'm not convinced by this what I call pseudo rally. Like,
Neither am I,
I'm
actually.
not buying it. I still think this is a huge setup to become as big an exit LP for some people who are like in line with maybe SBF, and maybe not personally, but like anyone who was hit by that hit of the FTX collapse, including SBF. They've got equity in like shitloads of these shit coins that are worth nothing if their ecosystems collapse. And Solana hosts a large number. There's like billions worth of like shitcoin tokens that are on the table, so long as they're like, oh, Solana should be pumping, the market should be pumping. So I still think that this is them setting this all up so that this is their last like grab of what we can get out of the market, because nothing doesn't feel real like this rally. I don't know about you, but I'm not buying it personally.
No, I shorted into yesterday. I went long just for a scalp today, but I definitely think we're headed lower. The problem is there's no macroeconomic reason that we would be rallying right now. Like the only stocks that are mooning are the memes, like actual stocks, like Tesla, like BBBY was up, AMC's moved. Like this is just junk, right? These are not real stocks. Tesla's debatable, but yeah, I don't think we're going to 30K like everybody seems to be calling for. And this is the danger. Like we rallied from 16 to 24. That's a healthy run. So to assume at 24, we're now going to 30 without a big ass pullback. I don't know.
I have a personal theory. Obviously, this is just like off the back of my head that I'm not saying there's any credible sources for saying any of this in particular, but I personally believe that the bull market that we just saw, where we saw Bitcoin run up to 69K and then basically cap at that. A lot of people were memeing at the time. It's like, oh, what a coincidence. But once you follow the rabbit hole and you connect enough dots, and that, with all we know right now about Alameda and how they're basically playing the books of what people who are newer to crypto still don't realize, there's a difference between paper money and actual liquidity. Like your crypto token could be worth billions in market cap, and that's all the normies are looking at. But what's billions in market cap when there's only 50K liquidity in the only DEX that makes your trade available?
People, they don't get it at all. And why would they? Because a lot of people are coming into crypto never having invested or traded in their life. They heard the stories and they jumped in. But you're absolutely right. Liquidity is everything. And people don't realize it. You can moon a chart very easily by having low liquidity on your coin.
So we're looking at that on a Bitcoin scale, but if you go beyond your wider horizons for the most average people, like there's nothing stopping these big boys from inflating what we just described, but on a crazy scale to the point where it looks legit. Like if we're talking 30 billion of users' funds, like they were leveraging that. So that's already multiples of 30 billion. But the crazy thing on top of all that is they were actually implementing code that made it impossible for them to get liquidated.
I know, that's the wildest thing of the whole thing.
They were taking all these loans based on this amount of capital, which was all based on paper money. And they were getting these crazy loans, and they were using these loans to fund and do crazy shit. And I think Bitcoin, basically that run-up was mostly funded by Alameda's rise and all that paper money that was basically being played with. I mean, when you're minting hundreds of millions of USDT on Tron today, and then tomorrow the treasury at USDT mints 50 million USDT, and then USDC, mints. We're living in like crazy times, so you can't really follow how much liquidity is truly in the market. So when you're an accredited exchange that everyone believes in, that's connected to the right people, and built a code that basically means it's impossible for you to lose, you get cocky. And I think that cockiness eventually led to what would have been the domino effect of everything crashing and then being found out so quickly. But everyone was happy at the time when they didn't know what was going on. So Bitcoin rallies to 69K, carries all of crypto with it. And it's a good thing. It happens at a good time in the cycle of Bitcoin because, following the charts, we're looking at these kind of logarithmic moves every 4 years or so. It fit the timeline, and it's kind of uncanny. But if we move it forward, SBF, FTX, they're no longer part of the game. So where's all that illiquid, like ballooned money that's going to inflate the market and give it the volume it needs for Bitcoin to go to 69K and break it to 100K this next cycle? I think a lot of people already know that it's probably going to be Binance, and a lot of what this recent pump was BUSD. So it kind of makes you also want to connect the dots. It's like the market shouldn't be rallying. The macroeconomic global climate is terrible. They're trying to tell us that we should start thinking about eating insects. That's how bad the macroeconomic scale is.
I know.
They're getting us ready for that next stage where they're like, oh, the food's run out, yo. So how can we be mooning? How can you convince me that people should be investing money paper that should be, growing as paper money, but in return, there's gonna come a day where people are gonna ask, oh, do I have enough money for next month's rent? Do I have money for next month's groceries? Am I gonna have to pull out my assets from the market? When people pull out and the balloon pops, I mean, how many times does humankind have to see it? The Tulip Mania, like we've got the Roaring 20, like there's just the fall of Rome. Everything follows the same pattern. It's when people just get blinded by the sheer greed that they start to discredit what is clearly in front of their own eyes. That is basically the precipice of the next fall, which will lead to the next bear market. So I think we've got another year, maybe. I'm still not convinced. Maybe if we break out like convincingly, I could be wrong. We could be bull market back on. But yeah, I still think if you're patient, like holding out and just being patient for another year, maybe might be the more mature play. Because if we do visit some of the key levels that Bitcoin and ETH should visit, we've got like some, grandmasters of TA have been saying for a while that Bitcoin should go back to 10K, Ethereum likely back to 800, maybe 600. Very worst case scenario, they're saying 400. But even every one of these, like what seems bearish levels, is actually jet fuel that will propel the next, logarithmic move. We don't want 2x's and 3x's, man. We want that logarithmic shit. We want that fucking 34x. You know what I mean? So if ETH is gonna reach 7K, 8K, it's gonna need to gather its fuel, and it's exhausting its fuel from my personal look on the market at the moment.
No, this looks like a bear market rally at best, in my opinion. Obviously, this is not financial advice. We are two idiots trying to make sense of a complicated world. But I mean, I don't think anything's changing until interest rates start to come down. I mean, we're not going to see any change in interest rates. I'm in Canada, US, very similar, probably at least until Q4 of 23, maybe Q1 24. We'll see. But realistically, I think it is a good time to be conservative. I mean, we saw bond yields hit highs that they haven't seen in over a decade, right? And that's pretty safe investments as far as investing goes. So it's good advice. It's good advice. Obviously you don't want to be sitting on USDC and miss the entire run, but I don't think we're there yet. I definitely think we've got at least a year to chop before we make any significant moves.
Yeah, and to be honest, like there's a negative look at people who are called bears. Obviously some are trolls, like some just enjoy it for the hell of it. They're always short, but a lot of people are bearish when they need to be bearish. It's like the person that you're hating on for being a bear is a bull at the right time, but they understand that there's no such thing as up only. It's kind of like, obviously I'm not necessarily supporting bears because I'm bearish myself. Like it might sound biased, but there is a stigma, and that's why a lot of crypto Twitter, like people that got pretty big, I think they got big because they were optimistic enough times where the market, was optimistic, that just they built a cult following. So they have to keep up that I know it looks grim, but trust me, it's coming. Bull market back home, baby. And they'll keep saying that every 2 weeks until eventually the market will go green at some point. But we told you, hey, hallelujah, you know what I mean? And they build that cult mentality even more. And optimism sells, I guess. I mean,
Yep.
People who are bearish don't usually get that popular. So I'm just trying to bring balance to the table. Like I'm usually overly bearish just to try and even out all the bullish energy that keeps attacking me every day from the eyes of everyone I interact with through crypto. Because people want to be bullish, man. It feels good to be bullish because there's
100%.
hopes, there's dreams. Yeah,
I would way rather be bullish, but I would also way rather be realistic about the situation and just give an honest opinion about it as opposed to just flip-flopping. And it's good to stay detached and be able to change your mind. That's what makes a successful trader in the long term. But a lot of those crypto Twitter people that were calling for 800 and 10K BTC are now saying we're going to, I've seen as high as 50K. Like we're going back to 50. I'm like, fuck, no, we're not. Like, why would you even put that out? It's just nuts.
It's insane, yeah. But then again, there's always got to be two sides to the coin.
Certainly. Everyone's got a 50% chance of being right.
And the good thing about patience is patience just means you last longer in the game. And the longer you are in the game, whether you like it or not, you are becoming more experienced.
Yeah.
Just seeing things play out, whether you're involved in them personally, sometimes it's better not to be involved because sometimes people's life savings get rugged in an instinct, whether it's a centralized exchange or a shitcoin or an LP farm or whatever, or like even a good project that just got drained by a genius hacker. Going through all these experiences just makes you prepared for the inevitable good times, because there will be good times again. It's just like, can you stay long enough with enough liquidity, so when the good times come, you can basically sow seeds and reap the benefits. If you get liquidated before then, your battle becomes infinitely much harder. I mean, you start to think about taking loans out just so you can afford, putting into the next Shiba. That's when it starts getting dangerous.
With interest rates the way they are, loans for anything right now are dangerous. So if you are in debt, please take care of that first before you join us over in crypto, because it's going to be tough. I don't disagree that like it's going to get harder to live. I mean, I've experienced it with my own mortgage, with my own grocery bill, with my own, like, everything is crazy expensive compared to 2 years ago. And I don't know what it's like in your corner of the world, but it's tough, man. My disposable income has dropped dramatically.
It's global. I mean, I've traveled to places that were like, touted for being, good for tourism because they're on one of the positive sides, cheap to live there. And I've traveled to a few of these places in the last few years, and honestly, it's the same prices everywhere. Like, it seems to be like a gimmick where they're like, oh, the living expenses are cheaper over there. But when you go and see that in relation, it's just going up globally. It's scary because you thought that, oh, well, if it's cheaper over there, that can sustain such a large population. Then you realize that they're paying similar prices to you for similar products. And then you start doing the math. Well, how much are they getting paid? And it just starts to get really like depressing when you do the numbers, because some people are living day to day in some of these other nations. And I get why crypto is so attractive to them. I mean, people back when Axie was starting off, these people in the Philippines and Indonesia that got in early, they were doing that play to earn before it was even called play to earn. Man, him making $100 that day is a week's worth of pay that his parents would have both had to probably work full time to make. And that's part of the beauty of crypto. I mean, if you see these things with your own two eyes, you can know that there is a greater and good purpose from behind this technology. We look at Satoshi like a mythical figure, but I do like keeping it that way. I mean, it's better than him just being another dude,
I don't want to know.
Around,
don't want to know. Yeah.
Like, believing that there's this like super egotistic guy, like beyond the ego, is like, oh, coin for the people, no one shall control. Just believing in that dream and realizing a lot of people share that same like ethical code. And it's good to see some of them are being successful. Look at Andre Cronje. Like, he went just from being another dev to being like an icon of DeFi. And so many projects have made so many people like 7 figures at his hands. The guy's got a good touch to him. Some people are getting rewarded. Some people are getting cocky. Some people are getting sued by the SEC. It's rough waters, man. You don't know about these OGs. They're falling like flies these days.
Well, then maybe they overstayed their welcome, or they didn't evolve with the times, right? Because what got them to the spot that they're at probably won't make them successful for the next 5 years. Just repeating the same playbook, I don't think is going to work, because I think it was a much more cowboyish space. It still is to a large extent, but I don't think, give it 12 months and you start to see some money flow back in. I don't think this shit's going to fly at all.
Yeah, I hope, and I do think that the market will demand higher standards come next bull run. Just because people should have seen at this point how easy it is for people to basically put together a couple of pieces of web page, a couple of lines of Solidity. If they've got vicious intent, maybe play with the code so that, it's a honeypot or whatnot. Or even if they've got good intention, but, let's be honest, they're just shitcoiners. If they can run away with, 5 ETH in LP, they're probably going to choose that instead of like dedicating the next 6 months of their life to building something that, doesn't need to be built. So the fact it's out in the open, even the big boys, SBF is probably the big boy that took the hit for the rest of them. But like a lot of big names have had fingers pointed at them the last 2 years. And there's probably a few more that have yet to be uncovered. Hopefully we witness a good flushing out of the filth, so that we can grow on firm and greener roots come next bull cycle. Like, let's hope for a healthier bull cycle.
It's a really nice way to put it. Really nice way to put it, man. I like it. Well, before we wrap today, I always ask my guests, who is the man? Who is Khan? What do you do when you're not staring at charts? Bitcoin's mooning, by the way. Timestamp this for our audience. Feb 7th. We're back over 23K. 50K, here we come. Not. What do you do for fun, my man?
Um,
You stare at
when I
charts,
first
don't
got
you?
into crypto, yeah, it was just such an enchanting and new world to me, that I just couldn't get enough time. Like, well, while I was at work, any spare time on the laptop, reading up the discords, reading up the Medium pages, getting involved in the crypto games, getting involved in this token, this project, this ICO, and it was so enchanting, and the dreams were like so like vivid that when you get that feeling, that like grind mindset, and it just comes naturally. um I've seen the positive side of crypto, and it did that to me. So for about 4 years I put in the grind, but at this point where I see that there's not enough, let's say, reward in return for effort as there was back in the day. I mean, what it took to be successful at crypto in 2019 and 20, the amount of experience and knowledge people can gain overnight in this day and age. So no matter how good you are at what you do, the edge is gone, in my opinion. And being an older like veteran, to me, it's just healthier for me to acknowledge this. So I don't try and pretend to be like the know-it-all DeFi guy. I know DeFi is evolving at a rate where, I could pretend to be up to date with it. I could have an AI engine right now and read off it and pretend I'm saying all of it. I could even tell the AI to prompt it as if it was Khan Among Lions on Twitter tweeting this out. I mean, people can do that now. So that edge doesn't carry as much value. So I'm just more relaxed. Like, I'm willing to play out the longer game. I'm hibernating. I'm doing a lot of Xbox gaming these days because
Nice.
it's unhealthy to sit down watching the chart. I mean, you may as well get some hand-eye coordination and enjoyment playing a good game rather than sitting 3 hours next to a chart hoping you don't get liquidated on a position that you shouldn't have taken. But up only.
That never happens. It's literally never happened. I'm kidding, of course. It fucking sucks. But no, it's good. It's good to take a break. Like, you can't control any of this shit. Like, you really have no influence over what's happening. So you may as well set your stuff up, make sure you're using stop losses and take profits, and just walk away and go live your life,
Let it come to you, baby. Yeah, let it come to you.
100%.
Ride the whales, man. When the whales are swimming, swim with them. When they ain't swimming, man, just stay in your waters. There's like, it still amazes me how eager people are on Telegram, like with all these BSC launches happening and these Arbitrum. It's like, oh my God, did you see this? It launched, sharing the alpha. And they're all like throwing in 100, 200, like $500 here and there. And every one of them is like, oh, is this the Shiba of my time? And you're seeing single examples, but from the mentality, from the way they talk, this is how they live. And I'm like, it's like a goblin society has been bred. And you start to think like, well, if he throws in 100 every one of these shit coins, like he's probably put in like $5,000 at this point. And he's hoping that eventually one of these $100 investments is going to make him 100K. And
Yep.
Bro, I'm not saying it's impossible, but let's put things in reference. It was a lot more likely 2 years ago. Let's not play that record and pretend that it's the same framework. Times have changed. And if you live that lifestyle, well, all the power to you, man. But like, it doesn't seem to be an enjoyable way to live. Think of the amount of anguish every time that $100 gets rugged, and they have to put on that face, that smile, and go back in their Telegram groups and be like, "Hey guys, got another alpha. This just dropped."
It's hard, and I think people need to evaluate sort of their priorities in life, because making money is certainly important, and it's something that I think everybody in the space at least has some part of their brain occupied by. But when this takes over your entire life, it just becomes unhealthy, right? You got to go outside, got to touch grass, got to play with your kids, got to do
Man,
lots of shit, right?
I'm a fellow dad, man. You've said 100%. At one point, you realize it's just numbers on a screen. Like, you miss a moment with your kids, and you're like, was it really worth like
Yeah.
making 500, bucks? Maybe you're a big boy making that 50K. Ooh, 50K. It's like, it's just numbers on a screen. Today you made it. In a year's time, you're gonna get rugged 150K, bro. Take it easy. You gotta live with it, man. These people that got rugged, man, on FTX, like, how do you think it has felt for them to wake up every morning? Like, especially the ones that did it properly. Like, I'm talking about, that hard worker, the guy that put on, dun, 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 like Rocky music every day as he was like charting and shit. He actually went from 1K to like 500K, and he kept it on FTX, and he was so happy. And then he wakes up like, dude, that could happen to any of us.
Yeah.
Like UST was the one. I remember thinking of putting all my money into UST at one point. That was the smart thing. That was smart money. Thank God I didn't, man. If I'd done so, boom. What's that? Pennies on your dollar? For real, literal pennies on your dollar. Think of the guys that built their legacy and were like, Mama, I made it. I turned into a millionaire before 30. I can live on my own. And she's like, oh, on the news, they say this UST that you keep talking about, it's gone, baby. It's gone. You got to
like,
wake up, man.
I remember reading a Twitter thread at the time, and it was before pre Luna collapse. It was like you could stake your UST on Anchor and earn, I think it was like 20% APR, but then you could use it to borrow MIM, like Magic Internet money, and then like cycle it through. You're basically getting infinite gains at that point. You're like, where is this money coming from? There is no money here. It's just fake news.
Bro, it's amazing you bring that point up because I'm going to tie this into some real shit, and people can discredit it as, what's the word, conspiracy theory, whatnot, but this is some real shit.
Conspiracy theories. This is going to be the best part of the episode.
You described, I remember hearing like about this, but before knowing how it worked and being amazed by the tech. Like it was revolutionary from my side. Like I was looking at it with like the puppy dog eyes. But afterwards, about a year later, I listened to the audiobook, The Creature from Jekyll Island. And what that does is it basically talks about the Federal Reserve from inception, Genesis, all the way to modern day, and every single bit of information that is publicly available about them. And it is a mind blower, not because it shows you how dirty global money is and like the very idea of, federal money and global banks and centralized banks. Let's put that all aside. What truly shocked me was how much similarity there was between the system that was developed and used by the Federal Reserve and what happened with all the crypto blowups, Luna included, FTX included. It's when you start taking a number and then taking a loan based on a number and therefore inflating it and turning it into paper money and then using that as assets that can therefore be also used to take out a loan. And if you throw in a few LLCs here and there, a few, bits and bells and whistles at the right places, you've created like an infinitely perpetual Ponzi. And that's what the US dollar is. I don't mean to offend anyone, but look into the facts. And that's what UST is. That's what, FTX's coin was trying to do. It's insane how parallel they all are when you start looking at them at the same time. And it's the same system. It's that diabolical Ponzi-like built up on. It's just so unsafe to take loans based on loans because once you do it once, it's an infinitely expanding cycle. You can literally do that as many times as the computer will allow you.
Yeah, it's a great book, actually. I'm going to throw it in the show notes for the audience who haven't read it because I think it's foundational in terms of people's financial understanding of the financial system in general. It's people just think that money has value because it's money, and it doesn't. And
it's history, man. Yeah. We're talking thousands of years of human experimentation, and it's like the Federal Reserve is one of the culminations of an epoch. Like it was supposed to be like, oh, we figured out the ultimate financial system, and then you go throughout the entire history that it took to get from point A to point B. And if you don't realize all the fallacies on that path after they get repeated over and over so many times, it's like you choose to be blind. And when I see this in crypto, it really does upset me because crypto is supposed to be the anti-government movement, like the anti-man establishment. So the fact that we're using their same tricks and tactics just on each other, kind of a wolf versus sheep scenario, it is disheartening at times when you see it. But humans exist in both forms. There's going to be the opportunists. There's going to be the visionaries. And yeah, we're just part of the experiment. I mean, we're just having our say in a decentralized world that insists on evolving on a daily basis.
So, message for anyone that wants to build a project, don't copy paste the current fiat system and bring it to crypto. We don't want that shit in here, okay? We want a better system. Man, this was great. Thank you so much for the time today. I can't believe we're at over an hour already, dude. I could talk to you for hours. So please, I'm going to add you to my regular roster of repeat guests if you don't mind, because I really enjoyed the conversation.
I'd love to, yeah. Good time. Time flies in good conversation, man. It's rare to be able to bounce. Some people just don't understand. They're not at the level where, some of the ideas that we might discuss might upset them, offend them. And we're not out to, make anyone feel bad. it's just nice to be able to talk openly and have someone who can talk back that openly and just, enjoy being in each other's company.
I'm with you on that 100%. Yeah, and part of my commitment to the community in general is I'm going to start putting out some YouTube short content to go over a lot of the topics and the definitions that we cover on the show so that they can get a better foundation of it from the get-go and then enjoy the episodes more because they know where we're coming from on a lot of it. So and any ideas that I'd love to hear from you in terms of what you think people need to understand as an OG in the crypto space. Be great to hear from you.
Great stuff. Yeah, man. That's a fantastic idea. And yeah, feel free. I'm open to you, man. My DMs be open, baby. It's absolute pleasure, man.
I'll slide in there. All right, Con. Thanks, man. Take care.
All right, you too, bro. Peace.
Cheers. Oh my gosh, man. So much fun. I had a blast with talking to Con today, and I hope you enjoyed the episode as well. I would love to have Con back actually as a co-host on a bunch of episodes coming up, so we'll make that happen in the near future, I promise. Rad fam, I need to make sure that you are subscribed to this channel, that you've liked this video, and that you have left me a 5-star review on your favorite podcast app. We are going to start doing this on Mondays going forward, and as I've mentioned in previous episodes, you'll start to see more YouTube short content, kind of explaining some of the basics of blockchain, but also what's going on in the market. So watch for those in coming weeks as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. It was a pleasure to provide some content for you today, and I will see you next week. Later, fam. Keep it rad. The Rad DAO podcast is produced for entertainment and education purposes only. I know this because I'm not a licensed financial advisor. If you're thinking of investing in any of the tokens talked about during this episode, then I implore you to please do your own due diligence and, if necessary, consult with a licensed financial advisor.